The UN War Crimes Tribunal has confirmed that genocide occurred in the Bosnian town of Srebrenica in 1995, but has yet to rule on whether Bosnian Serb commander Ratko Mladic was responsible. Mladic's trial is the last before the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, ICTY, and the judgment has been long awaited by tens of thousands of victims across the bitterly divided region. The 74-year-old, dubbed the Butcher of Bosnia, is currently undergoing a blood pressure test in The Hague this morning, delaying the verdict, a family member said. The man, who remains a hero to many in Serbia, has denied 11 counts including genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity allegedly committed during the 1992-1995 war that killed 100,000 and displaced 2.2 million as ethnic rivalries tore Yugoslavia apart. Presiding Judge Alphonse Ori said this morning that court found that genocide, persecution, extermination, murder, and the inhuman act of forcible transfer were committed in or around Srebrenica in 1995. Mladic, 74, is the highest military commander to be judged by the tribunal set up in 1993 and based in The Hague. Prosecutors accused Mladic and his political counterpart Radovan Karadzic of using ethnic cleansing to permanently remove Bosnian Muslims and Bosnian Croats from areas claimed by Bosnian Serbs. Today's verdict is one of the most important in the history of the tribunal, Chief Prosecutor Serge Brammertz said. Mladic was the mastermind behind the killing of thousands of people, he said. Caught after 16 years on the run, Mladic faced 2 genocide charges including for the 1995 massacre in northeastern Srebrenica, where troops under his command slaughtered almost 8,000 Muslim men and boys. The killings, in which the victims were marched away, shot in the back and dumped in mass graves, was one of the darkest episodes in the conflict, and has been called the worst atrocity on European soil since World War II. Once a brutish military commander who strode around in combat fatigues, Mladic was also be judged for directing a 44-month campaign of sniping and shelling to terrorize citizens in Bosnia's capital Sarajevo, which left about 10,000 dead. Mladic was further charged with taking hostage more than 200 NATO military personnel and keeping them as human shields to prevent NATO airstrikes against the Bosnian Serb army. Based on the evidence we have presented, based on Mladic's high level of responsibility, I'm expecting the highest sentence, said Prosecutor Brammertz. Nothing less than a life sentence will be acceptable to us, he said on Tuesday. In a complex case spread over 5 years, almost 600 witnesses testified and more than 10,000 exhibits were presented. But defense lawyers, who in past days filed a flurry of requests to have their ailing clients' health assessed, have slammed his trial as political and said it failed to reconcile ethnic groups in Bosnia. They insist he is not a monster and have called for his acquittal. History will deliver its judgment with distance, Miodrag Stevanovic said. Having suffered at least 3 strokes, Mladic could die at any moment, his lawyers said. Rumors swirled on the eve of the verdict that he might not even show up in court. His ill health has left him with part paralysis of the entire right side of his body, lawyer Dragan Ivitic added. The stocky military leader, who saluted judges at his first appearance in 2011 shortly after his arrest and deportation from Serbia, has always denied the charges. For victims of the atrocities committed by the Bosnian Serb army, however, the time has come for Mladic to face justice has been long awaited. Munira Subasic, president of the Mothers of Srebrenica, who said she had begged Mladic to spare her son, said the truth had to be unveiled. We need truth, we need justice. Without justice there's no trust, without trust there's no reconciliation, she said. In the northwestern Bosnian village of Zekuvi, Fikret Basic said he did not care whether Mladic is convicted or not. For me, Mladic is already dead anyway, the only thing that interests me is finding my wife, my children, my mother, he said. 6-year-old Nermina, 12-year-old Nerman and their mother Minka were executed on July 25, 1992 by Bosnian Serb forces. They remain among some 7,000 people still missing in Bosnia. In the 1990s he was the burly, brash general leading nationalist Bosnian Serbs towards a seemingly sweeping victory in Bosnia's war. 2 decades later, he has been reduced to an ailing old man awaiting judgment on genocide charges in a UN court. Defiant until the close of his 5-year trial, Mladic, 74, desperately tried to postpone the verdict, and his lawyers persistently accused the ICTY of denying him proper medical care. Prosecutors requested a life sentence, while his lawyers have called for his acquittal and release, arguing he never approved mass killings of Muslim or Croat civilians and was a victim of Western anti-Serb bias. Mladic said he wanted to be remembered as a defender of Serbs in a struggle for survival against Muslims dating back centuries, and made urgent by a Muslim Croat vote for Bosnia's independence from Serbian-led Yugoslavia in 1992. I am General Ratko Mladic. The whole world knows who I am, he told a pre-trial hearing in 2011. I am here defending my country and people, not Ratko Mladic. Mladic was charged with genocide for mass slaughter in Srebrenica, and his forces' 43-month-long siege of Sarajevo in which thousands of civilians were killed by artillery, mortar, tank, and sniper fire from the rugged hills ringing the capital. It took 17 years to bring him to trial, as he remained in hiding among loyal Serbs who helped conceal him, but as Serbia evolved, Mladic lost his sanctuary. When Serbian police acting on an ICTY arrest warrant finally traced Mladic to a cousin's farmhouse in May 2011, they found a penniless, shambling and ill old man. The son of a World War II Yugoslav partisan killed in 1945, Mladic was a general in the old communist Yugoslav People's Army, JNA, when the multinational Balkan Republic began to disintegrate in 1991 with the secession of Slovenia and Croatia. When Bosnia Serbs rose up in response to a referendum for independence by Muslims and Croats, Mladic took over Belgrade's forces in Bosnia, which swiftly overran 70% of the country with a combination of daring, ruthlessness and brutality. Serb paramilitaries entered the conflict with a campaign of murder, rape, mutilation and expulsion mainly against Bosnian Muslims. Dozens of towns were besieged with heavy weapons and villages were burned down as 22,000 UN peacekeeping troops stood by more or less helplessly, with orders not to take sides. Mladic had a cameraman film the blitz of the Muslim enclave of Srebrenica, showing him bronzed and fit at 53, extolling his lads and haranguing hapless Dutch UN peacekeepers who took his soldiers' word that the inhabitants would be safe. Instead, 8,000 of them were systematically executed in a massacre that took several days in July 1995. Over 6,900 victims have since been identified by DNA tests. TV footage showed Mladic asserting that he had liberated Srebrenica and gifted it to Serbs as revenge against Turks who ruled the region when it was part of the Ottoman Empire. The massacre was the grim culmination of a 3.5-year conflict in which the beefy general had pounded Sarajevo daily with the entire Bosnian Serb arsenal, killing over 11,000 people, until local sports fields were overflowing with graves. Mladic's goal, ICTY prosecutors say, was ethnic cleansing, the forcible extermination or expulsion of Muslims, Croats and other non-Serbs to clear Bosnian lands for a Greater Serbia. Prosecutors said it was a conspiracy in which Mladic and Karadzic were aided, armed and abetted by Milosevic. Only a combination of Western pressure and covert American arms and training for Croats and Muslims turned the tide in 1995 against Mladic's army, ultimately depriving it of equipment and fuel supplies from Serbia. NATO airstrikes did the rest. He spent only half his time at large as a hunted fugitive. Even after Milosevic fell to a pro-democracy uprising in 2000, Mladic remained well protected in various Belgrade apartments until 2005. He received treatment at a top military hospital. Sporadic sightings put him at a Belgrade horse race or soccer match. When finally arrested in the shabby rural farmhouse in 2011, he put up no resistance. His right arm was lame, the apparent result of an untreated stroke, and his trial has had to be delayed several times due to his shaky health. During his court appearances, Mladic has threatened Srebrenica massacre survivors, making a throat-slitting gesture towards a Muslim woman who had lost her husband, son, and several brothers, and refused to give evidence against former allies. The UN court dealing with crimes committed during the wars that followed the breakup of Yugoslavia hands down its penultimate ruling on Wednesday, having delivered 83 convictions. After the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, ICTY, judgment of Bosnian Serb Army Chief Ratko Mladic, here is a rundown of the fate of other key players in the Balkan Wars of the 1990s. Milosevic, Serbian president, charged. Slobodan Milosevic was accused of fueling ethnic conflict and mass murder in the former Yugoslavia during his 13 years of iron rule, defying international sanctions and NATO bombs. Elected Serbian president in 1990, he played a key role in supporting the Serb cause during the Croatian and Bosnian wars, and in the later Kosovo conflict when he was Yugoslav president. He died in his cell in 2006 aged 64 while awaiting a verdict on charges of genocide, war crimes and crimes against humanity. Karadzic, Bosnian Serb leader, guilty. Radovan Karadzic was found guilty in 2016 of genocide and 9 other charges including extermination, deportations and hostage-taking. He was sentenced to 40 years in jail. The genocide conviction arose from the 1995 Srebrenica massacre in which almost 8,000 Muslim men and boys were slaughtered. Karadzic, 72, has appealed. He evaded capture for 13 years until he was arrested in 2008 on a Belgrade bus, masquerading behind a bushy beard as a New Age healer. Seselj, radical Serb, acquitted. A Milosevic ally, Vojislav Seselj was accused of being behind the murder of many Croats, Muslims and other non-Serbs, as well as the forced deportation of tens of thousands. The ICTY court acquitted the hardline Serbian Radical Party leader on all charges, saying he did not have hierarchical responsibility for his paramilitary forces after they came under Serbian army control. The court's chief prosecutor has appealed, denouncing errors. Now aged 63, the Serbian Radical Party leader is a member of parliament. Izetbegovic, Bosnian president, not indicted. Bosnia's first president, Alija Izetbegovic, was a Muslim who led the country to independence, a move that was followed by the bloody 1992–1995 war between Muslims, Serbs and Croats. After his death in 2000, the ICTY said it had been investigating Serb allegations that he committed war crimes, but no charges were ever brought. Tuđman, Croatia president, escaped charges. Franjo Tuđman took the Croatian Republic out of the Yugoslav Federation. The subsequent independence war left about 20,000 people dead. After Tuđman died in 1999, aged 77, the ICTY said he would have been indicted for war crimes had he lived. Plavšić, Bosnian Serb president, guilty. Vice president of the Serb self-declared Republika Srpska during the Bosnian War, Biljana Plavšić, the only woman to be convicted by the ICTY, pleaded guilty to crimes against humanity and was sentenced to 11 years in jail in 2003. She was found to have played a leading role in a campaign of persecution against Croats and Muslims. Now 87, she was granted release in 2009. Gotovina, Croatian general, acquitted. An army general considered a war hero by many Croats, Ante Gotovina, now 62, was initially sentenced to 24 years in jail for crimes against humanity and war crimes. He was acquitted on appeal in 2012. Krajisnik, Serb leader, guilty. Momcilo Krajisnik, 72, a wartime Bosnian Serb leader, was released in August 2013, to a hero's welcome at home, after serving 2/3 of a 20-year sentence for crimes against humanity. The C, Kosovo president, faces court. Hashim Thaçi, Kosovo's president since 2016, was once the political leader of the guerrilla Kosovo Liberation Army, KLA, that fought for independence from Serbia. A 2010 Council of Europe report alleged he headed a mafia-style network involved in assassinations, unlawful detentions, and trafficking captives' organs during and after the conflict. he has denied the charges. He was not investigated by the ICTY but could face a special court recently established at The Hague to try crimes allegedly committed by KLA figures,